Mambo Vipi, what's happening? My name is Anyiko Owoko and I am a lover of arts, culture and everything African. And here we grant you front row access to your favorite celebrities, creators, the biggest personalities and industry experts. Come with me, you're now a VIP. This is what to expect on this week's episode.
You can build a new media business and kind of structure it in the way that you see fit, right? And also because you have access to so much more data on digital platforms, you can learn quickly. And then when it comes to revenue, you can be creative with your revenue models and ownership, which I think is a very important pillar in like wealth creation, etc. You can be the sole owner, or if it's a number of you who've come together, you have ownership over this thing that you've created.
The first check we ever made was episode 100. That's in a span of 5 years. It's consistency. We've had seasons where for like 4 months, we don't have clients, but we're shooting. Because you see, when the clients come, they don't care about what is going on. Did you have money? You didn't have money and all of that. They want the numbers. All right. They're always asking, so who's your target audience? What's your male-female split? Who are you talking to?
Kenyans have got a lot of views on TikTok, but the only way that TikTokers are making money now is when you go live. There's this thing called gifts. That's why most of the time when you are live, or rather when you pass by TikTok, you'll find people saying, tap, 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 gift me, lion, something like that.
Welcome back to VIP Access, Season 5 of this amazing podcast that's centered around the industry and artists. Without all the creatives doing what they're doing, we don't have the artists, we don't have your favorite artist. And this specific season of VIP Access is centered around industry issues and in collaboration with Industry Talks series of events that I've been having in collaboration with the Goethe Institute. For now, I would like to get into our conversation of today. Creatives, creators, artists, and businesses today have more ways than ever to grow their presence online, beyond just social media. Whether it's music, products, content, or experiences, audiences can now access what you offer directly and seamlessly. Over the past few years, new media entrepreneurship has evolved rapidly, driven by young pioneers who are reshaping Kenya and Africa's media landscape through podcasting, strategic brand partnerships, traditional media, events, and workshops. A key measure of success in this space is not just growing a following, but building a community and turning that engagement into financial growth by monetizing content and strategy. For budding creatives, this opens up limitless opportunities and could be the breakthrough the creative sector has been waiting for. In this episode, we'll explore how content creation can be turned into a viable business. Our panelists will unpack the advantages of monetizing your content and having a strategy, and how this can transform your creativity into sustainable business and success in the era of new media. We have an amazing set of panelists who you have seen or heard. Adelle Onyango is a podcaster under the umbrella of Legally Clueless Africa. We also have Calvin Wanguku, who is one of Kenya's top broadcasters and also a podcaster under the podcast Mics Are Open. We also have Azziad Nasenya, who's an accomplished influencer, but also a broadcaster and actress. Guys, I'm just so excited for this conversation. Can we just begin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adelle Onyango. I am the founder of Legally Clueless Africa. We're going to talk more about it, but it's a new media company. I'm also the founder of the Adelle Onyango Initiative. I wear very many hats, and my background is in broadcast media. I was on radio for 10 years before I quit to start my business. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to have this conversation.
Thank you. And if I may add something, Adelle is celebrated for her role in pioneering podcasting in Kenya and around Africa. the former radio host. As she said, she has had over 10 years experience on radio, and this allowed her not only to thrive on radio, but at the same time see gaps in traditional media and its form of storytelling. She's the creator of Legally Clueless, which is a new media company on a mission to amplify African stories, upskill Africans through new media workshops, and make wellness resources more accessible to the African community. She's also a co-author with Owoko, and they have a book called Our Broken Silence, documenting the voices of survivors of rape, family members, activists, and others. Yeah, so that's Adelle for you. Round of applause for Adelle again. And then we go on to Azziad, who's also a fave, especially on TikTok. You have seen her, you know Azziad.
Hi, guys. My name is Azziad Nasenya. I'm a journalist by profession, did broadcast journalism. I'm an actress, a content creator, and currently an on-air personality at Sound City, Kenya, doing the morning show from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. They told me to study when I was in school and wake up early. I'm going to sleep later in life, but they lied. They clearly lied. I'm also the founder of Synergy Point Limited. It's a content creator company that just professionalizes content creation. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I sell bags. So if you want a bag, I got you.
If I may also add something on Azziad, she became an internet sensation in 2020 when a TikTok video of her dancing to the song Utawezana by Major and Femi One went viral. On top of that, her infectious smile, dynamic dance moves, and talent has allowed her to amass a lot of following on social media platforms. She has since used the fame from social media and her talent to catapult herself into further success in the field of acting and in new and traditional media. At the moment, she works as a morning host on Sound City Radio and also as a brand influencer with various brands and partners and collaborators. She's also on Showmax, on the series Selena, and another one, Faithless. And she's now one of the most sought out influencers in Kenya. And then next we have the only gentleman on this panel. So we're happy to have you, Calvin Wanguku.
Well, first and foremost, I'm very shy. I am.
Who
really am.
Who knew?
Yeah. So my name is Calvin Wanguku. I am a dad. I am my mother's son, my grandparents' grandson, and I do cool stuff. I guess you can go on and say what I do.
Yeah, I'll say what you do. So Calvin is a media personality and entrepreneur, but also he's a podcaster with the Mics Are Open podcast, which was founded by a group of radio friends who wanted a different avenue to have longer and uncensored conversations. Thus the podcast title. Since its inception in 2019, their urban platform has now become one of the most popular and highest earning urban podcasts. So we're really excited to have him here and, be able to talk about how they made that happen. They've secured many deals with many brands. He's also heading strategic partnerships at AfriPods, which is an innovative, dynamic, and user-friendly platform that brings together podcasters, listeners, and advertisers. Calvin is also the founder of Base Radio. He's also involved in media planning and advertising as a strategist. Wow, you do a lot. A round of applause for Calvin, please. So the topic that we're discussing today is digital footprint for new media entrepreneurship. And there's always this discussion like, is it worth it spending so much time on social media or digital platforms?
You know me, I'm the worst when it comes to social media. I'm just saying, we have never really worked on our social media as a podcast. I'd be capping if I came on here and I've put it to the group. I'm like, guys, we need to change our game for the podcast. We'd be doing way better, but yeah, we're getting there. But here's the thing. We've got a massive following on YouTube. That's the thing. Yeah, we've got 256,000 followers. I think the other day I was checking our views. We've got 76 million views. Yeah, so I think that's social media. You know what I'm saying? But social media, I look at it as me throwing a barbecue. And there's people I want at my barbecue. And we'll have the kind of conversations I want to have at my barbecue. If we don't want you there, we don't want you there. You get? So that's what I tell people. So just like you said, you see what you get. So keep doing what you're doing, but also it's good to be informed with the data, what's getting you good conversions. It's like if I did skincare, boy, that would be terrible. But I know if I did like sneakers, yeah. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. If I started pushing Githeri on social media, guys would probably think that's a good meal because I can't cook, but I'm being genuine. It's just playing to your advantage in a way. But also, I don't really think everybody's got the answers when it comes to this new media thing and all of that. I think we're all still learning. Am I wrong? Yeah, we're all still learning. Like what people were doing last year is not what people are doing right now. Also, how Instagram is just changing because they also have to make money. And you guys are hitting them with hacks, this and that. So there's a lot that's changing. Like even in terms of when Askia started podcasting, hey, Adelle, do you remember when you got your first 100 listens? This is audio days. That's platinum right there. And right now, you mentioned something very important, right? When you keep pushing your podcast to the Kenyans over here, they already know. Yeah, Adelle has Legally Clueless. But if you take it to a different market, yeah, like that. So for like us guys, what we're currently doing as the mics are open is Calvin, I'm hating on Arsenal fans. That's been giving us some very good numbers. I mean, they really did lose. And if you're an Arsenal supporter, poleni sana.
You reminded me of radio days. I used to have to lie that I support Arsenal. Just like a banta kidogo. Thank God those days are behind me. I don't give a damn about football. So I think I'll answer in two parts. First, on like just a personal level, for like my personal social media platforms, I think it's back to sustainability. It's like, what do I like? I'm completely against respectability politics. So for example, being an African woman who's relatively young, especially in spaces where like legacy media, whatever, you're expected, if you're in business, to look a certain way and sound a certain way. That probably doesn't have tattoos or piercings, or if it's a blonde wig today, whatever. It's expected that you mute things down, which I just don't subscribe to anymore because it doesn't work. A room that is asking you to do that to give you respect doesn't respect you in the first place. So you might as well go in the way you are. And so I kind of have the same approach with social media where I'm just like, politics, things are going haywire. It's Tear Gas Friday. May I want to tell you about my orange tree that I just planted? That's what's in my heart, you know? And so that's for on a personal level. But for the business, I think there's a saying that, you know, while everybody else, sorry if you're religious, but like how people can trust in God as we trust in data. So you look at the numbers that you have, who is already interacting with Legally Clueless Africa products, right? And we get to understand who this person is, what devices are they using, their location. If we have a product and maybe there's a price attached to it, who are the people who come and view and don't buy? Who are the people who come and view and buy? Who are the people who are coming back for the fourth time and are buying, or for the fourth time and just viewing, right? So it's like, who are these people? So we break them down. And when you have your target audience, you have your core, we have about 4 pillars of who these people are. So our core, if we name her Anyiko, everything we need to do it's for Anyiko, all right? Maybe our number 4 is Calvin, and we'll be like, I mean, yeah, sawa. If he comes to the barbecue, okay. But no, Anyiko is the VIP. She's the one who has to come. So we need to understand, where does Anyiko live? What's her disposable income? Does she drive a car? If not, what car does she hope to drive? Where does she buy clothes? We're rooted in wellness. So is Anyiko thinking of getting into therapy? What is holding her back? Can she afford health insurance? Can she not? What social media platforms does she use? And when we understand that, we understood probably why, even when we do our certain marketing campaigns, we'll work on Instagram, some will not work. Because maybe Anyiko just doesn't use Instagram. So why am I killing myself when my Anyiko is not on Instagram? So analyzing the data, who is already interacting with your product even before you start actively marketing is important. And then who do you desire to have? So for me, if I'm ever kicked out of Kenya, I'm either living in Zimbabwe or Ghana. So it was a very personal decision where I was like, hey guys, we need to start actively targeting Ghana and Zimbabwe. And in those tell you to do, but you then become more intentional about who it is you're speaking to. I think the problem with a lot of creators is you don't know who you're talking to. It doesn't mean stop doing what you're doing. It's never too late to go back and think, anyway, who do we want to interact with this product? But once you know that, then you target them and everything else is just noise. Yeah.
I want to add something to what you said. And interestingly is when you are intentional about where you want to go, be it an audience, a specific market, a specific kind of person, then they also know you and they also come to you. So it's like a two-way traffic. Like for me, my podcast is called VIP Access, and I speak to different artists from across Africa. And when I started out, I didn't think that it would have the kind of reach it has around Africa. For me, it was just like something which was interesting. I'm like, when I look at social media and see what my peers are doing in Tanzania, in Uganda, it's pretty much the same thing I want to do. If there's a dope artist from Nigeria in Kenya, why not speak to them and speak to another person from Zimbabwe or from South Africa? But then once the podcast went out, I started seeing the numbers grow, like in Ghana, in South Africa. And it makes sense because these are people in other countries wanting to know what's happening in other parts of the continent, or wanting to hear their own artist speak to somebody else in another region. And then I actually got contacted by a TV station in Ghana, and they were like, we listened to your podcast, we'd like to syndicate it on TV. And that's the thing Adelle mentioned about Kenya, because the question is like, oh my God, I actually tried syndicating this or sharing it to some people, and the feedback was very iffy. But I'm just saying this for you to know that your content can also exist in various markets. If you made content and you're like, why are Kenyans or Nairobians not messing with my podcast? Maybe if you try market it and sponsor it in Kisumu, people will love it there, or maybe in Mombasa, or even when we're talking about events, are you able to plan a meet and greet in Kisumu or in Mombasa? And if you do, you might be surprised what opportunities might come to you. Yeah, that's my story for the day.
If you have a good show that only you and your mother know about, only you and your mom are going to listen to it. And it doesn't mean it's a bad show. It's just that you have not marketed it. And with the noise that the digital space has, you can't afford not to have even a little tiny bit of a marketing budget for your advertising budget for it.
The last question before we allow the audience to interact with you guys, I wanted to ask you all, like, how do you deal with rejection, just negativity generally, like on socials? How do you deal with that?
Negativity, criticism, it comes every single day from people around, like from people who know me, my relatives, my family, my friends, my management. I never hear that, because these are people who know what Azziad is about, who've seen Azziad grow. They know what I'm capable of. From people online every single day. And this is my first role in life. Not everybody loved Jesus. Whomst are you? You're just a mere human being. So not everybody is going to love you. And once you know that, it's going to be easier for you when you see certain comments and be like, you know what, this is someone who's just projecting. Someone can be criticizing, but it's positive criticism. That is why you need that circle around you to tell you, you know what, by the way, Adelle, that one is true. There is positive criticism, but online has a lot of bullying, which I have undergone all the years, still happening now. One thing you need to do, just find a strong team around you to just hold you down to that. And yeah, use the block button. That's what I always say. Don't be scared, babe. That's why it's there. And also there's this option where you can block certain words. Yes, you can mute certain words. Mute them. Yes, and also pray to God.
I truly believe in muting. In fact, I tell people, if you call me toxic feminist, I won't see it. So you need to change your insults. So that at least I can see, right? So even my ex, you can't reply my tweets if I don't follow you. So I understand that, yes, it's a terrible place, but personally, my space there is so peaceful because I've used the tools that these platforms have. And I always say my page, not my business page, but my page is not a democracy. So I don't even think twice. You know, like how someone can leave something and you misread the tone. I don't even sit to think, have I missed? I block so quickly. So I'm like, it's not a democracy. Go say those things somewhere else. I'm not in the mood today. So there's that. But I think it's also very important to understand, like, your dreams and your goals and your ambitions, like nobody else is meant to understand them. Like, it's you, right? I've even understood it with like, my team members, hiring them. What they need to understand is their job. Me, I see the role their job plays in where we're going. They will never see the dreams for Legally Clueless Africa the way I see it. Whether I explain with highlighters or whatever, here they will not see it, right? And so once I understood that, especially when I was quitting KISS, I realized sometimes we go to the wrong people to get advice, right? Just because someone is older does not automatically make them wiser. Just because someone is younger doesn't mean they're less wise. People could mean well, but could still project fears your way. I remember like talking to someone and they were like, why would you want to quit? Like just really projecting fear. And when I look back, I'm like, who you? First, they've never even stepped in a media house. So I was asking myself, what was I doing there? What was I talking to that person about, Secondly, even with the business, right? I get the notion of like business is hard. I get that. But I really think like your words and the things you say frame where your mind is at. So yes, it's hard, but what is not? Me, I've been an employee. It's hard as well, right? So like things are difficult. It's just like, that's just how life is. So you pick your hard in life, right? And then pick your struggle and go with it. And so with business, I realized the beginning years of starting a business are very difficult. I think between year 3 to 5, many businesses die. And you'll find at the beginning, I was everything, right? I was producer, I was the IT person. Somebody says, hey, I can't see the podcast on Spotify. I'm like, no, what does that mean? You have to start Googling, okay, what could this mean? Or calling whoever is in Germany. At the time I had a distributor who were in Germany and like trying to get them like to understand each other. It was just hell, right? And I was everything, which meant I was missing out on, let's say, family functions, etc. Someone who has never run a business will never understand that. And if you listen to advice from them, they may not fully understand what your journey is about at that point, or what that is kind of normal. It's unhealthy, but it's kind of normal. So be very clear about the places that you're going to for advice. So for me, what I've done is I've understood I'm not all-knowing, and I think it's a very important skill to have. I'm not all-knowing, and thinking that I am could be a hindrance to my business. So I set up a board, and it's people who have the skills or the expertise and the experience that I know I need to take my business where I want it to go. And so those are people who hold me accountable. Those are people who I go to for advice. So I wouldn't listen to the person dropping something that's clearly negative criticism, because sometimes there's constructive. I know the spaces I go to that will look at my books and say, here, why did you spend money here? It doesn't make sense. It didn't come back. I think have your own board, even on a personal level, not even as a business. Have like 3 people who are your board. You can go to AGM with them and say, I've done ABCD. What do you guys think, right? Because they know you well enough. And lastly, with social media, sometimes people meet what you post based on where they're at and what they've experienced. And all of that has nothing to do with me. And even engaging in a back and forth with you doesn't negate that you have met what I've said based on your experience. And your experience is valid, which then nowadays I hardly argue, because I'm like, I don't know why this has pissed you off. Maybe there's a valid reason. And it has nothing to do with me. So once you kind of understand that, there's a boundary and that's beyond my control. Yeah.
I think I'll start with online bullying, the comments. First and foremost, you guys have gotten like bullying, both of you guys. I respect, even you, Anyiko. I think Kenya as a society, especially as you mentioned X, ladies get bullied a lot. It's terrible by nitwits. No. But anyway, me, if you try bully me, boss, share your location. I'm about that life. I'm not taking... But hey, Adele, you know what I'm saying, right? Do not. Yeah, but also with that said and done, you just tend to realize that there's a lot of people who are projecting towards you. You just look at some of these things that people are saying and you're like, hey, bro, I'll pray for you. Like that's all I could do. So it is a matter of existing in very good spaces. Back to that whole analogy of the barbecue. On my social media, it's the same. I follow people who I feel like we're in the same energy, same wavelength. Like I found an Instagram handle. I don't know why. I don't remember it. It would have done you guys so much good. They post like good things people are doing to each other every day. It's so wholesome. Like I find it before I'm going to bed and I'm like, there's hope in humanity. Like that's a space I like to exist in. So I don't take it too seriously. At times I post like lyrics from a song and I'm like, boss, the Safaricom CEO follows me. What are they going to think about me? You get? Yeah, so you got to remember that besides everything, everybody's human. They've got different roles and everything. And I think for like us guys, especially Anyiko, Adelle, Azziad, what all of us do, I remember Jay-Z has a thing where he says, you get into some rooms and people already know you, admire you. Some people want to know you. So like I could walk into a meeting without a suit and these people will accord me an ear. And also one of the things that I've come to learn is I only have Twitter on my laptop. Like at times I'm like, who did what? Like I'm catching up. Like after today, after I'm done with this, nothing. So you just control it because it's positive and it's negative. And it's as much as you guys, you've said you're using all of this block, the words and everything. Hey, there's just some stuff that you see on there. And you're just like, hey, this is painful. You get, when it comes to like criticism, we take it seriously. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had some guys on our YouTube channel who were saying, you guys haven't done an episode as the four of you in a while. You get, and they're like, boss, what's going on? So that was something, and we looked at that comment and we had to address it. So I think 2 weeks ago on the podcast, we're like, okay, cool, this is what has been happening. Guys have this and this, some guys are traveling, some guys have this. So it's understandable, but we get what you mean. You get? So you got to take it seriously. And at times, just take some stuff with a pinch of salt. I agree with getting people who know you and people who can advise you, but also I'm big on like spaces I'm around. There's times where, you're seated with people and they say some stuff and you're like, hey, Calvin, this is not you, Bana. You were here 5 years ago. You get, so you gotta be self-aware. At the end of the day, everybody could tell you this and that and what. You've got a beautiful board, but if you can't actually tell it to yourself, because at the end of the day, that intra is very important. You got to keep it real. Yeah, because it is what it is. Those are my gems.
Don't forget, these platforms, they need you to be engaged, right? And so if I feed you things that will get you angry, you're going to stay on fighting. I always say John from Ruaka. Please, I have nothing against Ruaka, but he always pops up. But you'll find yourself fighting John from Ruaka for the whole day, right? But the algorithm is baiting you. But ultimately, you're the one with the power. And I feel like sometimes the reason we get so much hate is we've been trained to be angry fast. We're always angry. There's something to be angry about every time you go online. There's something. You will never utter something to be angry about. And you're being trained to wake up, the first emotion you pick up is anger. So when Azziad posts whatever she'll post, what's now you have trained your body is to react with anger. I'm pretty sure you've seen those posts where you're just like, where is this? Why between my posts, so it's like, I think, especially as Africans, because that's where the numbers are for a lot of these platforms, we have to start acknowledging our power in saying, I don't want to be angry every day, right? I can be engaged with good content, or the one I follow is called Good News. So they'll tell you things on like, this whale species we thought was endangered is back. I'm like, wonderful, this is great. So the power is actually in your hands. Don't allow yourself to be trained to think that it's normal to be angry every day on everything. No.
But, As you were speaking, I've just remembered someone gave me an example many years ago, and someone was talking about like trolling on the internet, and they were like, you know what? It's actually not that serious, right? So think about it. In Kenya, maybe as of 2 years ago or 3 years, this is data that I remember. I think on Twitter we had like 4 million, and in terms of active users, will never equate to the total, right? So you probably have an active maybe 2 million or something like that. Guys are signing up, like my mom's on Twitter, but she's not active. You get. So next time anyone's saying like trolling you and everything, just get into Oma 3. Go stand outside Kenya Cinema and ask them, umecheki nani anatusiwa Twitter? They'll be like, huh? Someone might even slap you. They're like, boss, went out to make money, bana, or I've got my own issues. So don't take it too seriously. People are going through so much more than thinking about who's trending or what. That's just a bunch of like people with data or free Wi-Fi just talking smack all day because they can, which is very disappointing. Like, how'd you go home and face yourself? You know how you get home and you're like analyzing how your day was? So I trolled Azziad all day. You put yourself to bed like that. That's terrible.
I don't think they sleep. There's no sleep for the wicked.
True. But yeah, so don't take it too seriously. It's weak.
Okay, we officially open the floor for your comments, additions, sentiments.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Mugwe Calvin. I'm a co-founder of Salama Pay. And my question to Calvin is, how did you jog from theology to media just all of a sudden? And were you able? I know that's personal, but sorry.
Yeah. Crazy story, how this story haunts me so much. Well, so clearly, Adele, you've known me. So, by the way, Adele and I started working on radio at a radio station down the road many years ago. Yeah. So what happens is this, right? It came from, my dad was a Muslim, my mom's a Christian. And while my mom is a Christian, her first undergrad, oh, yo, shout out to my mom. She's got a PhD, you know, she's smart for both of us. So her first undergrad, she actually majored in Islamic religious education. And she's a Christian. So you can imagine growing up in this household where you're like, she used to lecture. So all her students were from Muslim backgrounds. Like they'd be Fatna, Abdi, and who and what. And then my mom Sunday is in church, Kamsa. You get, so it was very confusing. So trying to understand all of that. So theology was one of those things. I went to a Christian university, so I was trying to figure out all of that. And I guess when you get your answers, you're like, okay, yeah, good stuff. So I think communication for me was always a calling. That's what I went and studied. You remember I started as a reporter. Yeah. So I used to be a news reporter. So communication for me was just one of those things where I knew I wanted to be something, but my friends were always like, oh, you can do this. You know, you're a natural and what and what. So when I went to uni, I think the first radio show that we did was on a Friday afternoon. We went in, we're ready to play some Snoop Dogg and all of this. And, you know, like, we're young, youth. And they said, you can't play that kind of music on this here station. That was the end of my radio career on campus radio. Literally, it lasted maybe 30 minutes or something, yeah. But that's how we ended up here, I guess.
So just wanted to ask you all, like, how has it been since, you know, leaving legacy media to new media? And for those who are in both, how do you double? What are the huge differences? I mean, would you leave traditional media and just exist on new media? Or would you advise others who want to come into this field to double? Or what are the pros and cons?
I wanted Azziad to start because at least maybe she'll say something nice about legacy media. I do not miss legacy media. I don't know how you guys still, like, power to you, more power to you. But also because I think my time was up. 10 years is a long time. I got in when I was 20. I left when I was 30. I think with digital platforms, especially for Africans, I think there's a lot of pros, I would say. And I think we should think about digital platforms as being more than social media. So because of the hats like I'm wearing here, so it's creative entrepreneur, social media is a tool for you to market. And so for me, the pros that I see, especially for Africans, it's like you do have access to creating businesses around the gig economy or within the creative economy that before we didn't have the access to. You have the access to tools that can help you deliver quality products that legacy media before had a monopoly on. Even if we're talking about your content, if it's a show, you now have access to, if we're talking about AI tools that can help you deliver products of high quality. And before, it would be too expensive to do that. I think also in terms of money, I always say money is not the problem. It's the route you got to getting it and what you use it for. That's, is the issue. And so if you look at legacy media, I was talking earlier, there's the issue of ownership, which is one of the issues that I had. I didn't own my show. Anything I created belonged to the company, right? I was getting a salary, yes, but what I would really have wanted is a percentage of the revenue that my show was bringing in. I didn't have full control over the content direction, be it music or actually like who's coming on the show, especially when you go into political seasons, again, which is very peculiar. Well, not only in Africa, I think across the globe. So the pros when you come out are that you can build a new media business and kind of structure it in the way that you see fit, right? And also because you have access to so much more data on digital platforms, you can learn quickly, right? So if something you try fails, you quickly see it and you like change the model quickly. And then when it comes to revenue, you can be creative with your revenue models and ownership, which I think is a very important pillar in like wealth creation, etc. You can be the sole owner, or if it's a number of you who've come together, you have ownership over this thing that you've created. But there is still a space for, I'll end with saying there is a space for legacy media. Our podcast plays on Trace. It can be a great distribution platform. It can be a great revenue platform. I just want to own my things.
I agree with what she said. Maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned still, because I believe in having a day job, As in, yes, I love social media and digital media. You could do whatever, but like, I always have this thing in my head. What if Instagram was crashing? TikTok was crashing. WhatsApp was crashing. And then what? Because who knows? We might wake up one day and then kapish, all of them have gone. And then what's going to happen to you? I think that is why for me, it was important for me to go to school, finish my course, look for a job. So despite me doing my job, I can still do whatever it is I'm getting on social media. That's double pay. But like, it's good because you have a fallback plan. I think that is how I look at it. But when it comes to digital media, there are a lot of avenues you can make money from. You could do podcasts, you could do TikTok lives, you could do Instagram Reels, a lot. The list is endless. The problem is only that there's highs and lows. There are those seasons. So what do you do with those seasons? Like this season where you're going to get like 50 jobs in a month. Next month, you're going to get one job. And then, so you're going to go back to Italy because anyways, so I believe in balancing both. And I guess that's why I'm balancing both. But again, just find where you're strong and where it works in your favor.
So for me, I feel like everything plays a role. Traditional media is very important. And I'll give you an example. The whole bandit situation in the Rift, right? Those guys don't have time for, what do you call them? iPhones, Samsungs, Androids, all of that. They use a lot of feature phones, right? So the feature phone has the calls they can do. They can listen to FM on that. If you're like a community leader in that area and you want to send a message to the bandits and this kind of places, right? That's what you'll use. So radio plays a vital point. And I'm always saying it, radio is not going anywhere. It's always going to exist, right? When you bring in things like TikTok, Instagram, and all of these different social media platforms, they aid to that, right? Like, I think I said this somewhere this week. I had James Smart on the show and we were talking about legacy media and, podcasts and digital. And the most beautiful thing about it is once you realize that everybody wants to break news on social media, be the first person to post, right? And everybody can do that. You saw it when we had the death of the CDF. But now, Nation, Standard, and what have you, John Alanamo with everything that he's doing. He's a great example, actually, of legacy and digital working together. He's going to take time and actually analyze and do all the investigative stuff that he has to do. And he's going to come out and put it on a digital platform, right? But now the good thing about, as a seasoned journalist, you'll be able to know that, hey, I don't want to just break the news, right? I want to go down into the 5 W's and then all of those different kind of things. So you'll be able, so both of them play a part. But if you are in legacy media and you don't embrace what digital is doing, trust me, you'll be going home very soon. So that's how I look at it. They both have a part to play. They're important. And like I'm always telling guys, if I was to ever own a radio station, I'd go by Ghetto Radio, 100%. Like, they have the most unique audience ever, and they literally get listened to by everybody. You get? So you got to look at it in that perspective and how unique they are, all of the stuff they do on digital. I might not follow everything that they do, but they got the numbers and they make the money. So I hope I answered that.
Adelle, I wanted to ask you about building sustainable content for a new media business. This is something I think I haven't seen any podcaster speaking about it, or being so passionate about it. Every time you go places, it's like, how do you start a podcast? And these are still important topics and sessions to have, because so many people still want to get into podcasting. But you have even done trainings on how to build a sustainable model around the content. If you want to be in business when it comes to new media, I know there must be a lot of steps towards this and a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat and tears. But in a few words, or what kind of tips could you give towards this?
I think when we think about new media, I like people moving away from social media. Like, those two things are not interchangeable. They're not the same. And so when you talk about building a sustainable new media business, you can actually have something that doesn't fully rely on social media for anything other than marketing. For example, one of our products, which is the podcast, we've learned that the marketing we do on social media for our Kenyan audience doesn't yield anything new. But when we market specifically to a Ghanaian audience or South African audience, then we see something happen. So I think it's very important to differentiate the two. When we started the workshops, it was because of sustainability. The hill I die on is that you can't run a podcast only. Like, it can't just be the podcast itself for it to be sustainable in this market. And sustainability for us, we looked at two things. We looked at sustainability from a content perspective and from a revenue perspective. And so from a content perspective, we stumbled into our format. Like, it's just my ancestors worked overtime. It's not like I was this smart person. I think for 5 episodes, it was about me and me navigating this. I just put in my resignation, Kiss breakfast show, and thinking I'm crazy, right? But knowing that, like, I just didn't want to do this show anymore. But by episode 5, I'd said everything I needed to say about that. Now I was even feeling good. So I really didn't have any more stories about that. And so I kind of just started like tapping into my friends who came onto the show, and I realized I have a passion for African stories. And I realized that was one of the things I hated about the show I used to host. I wasn't outside where life is happening, right? And I wasn't amplifying everyday African stories. And so that's when I really had to dig into understanding content structure from a sustainable point. So sustainability in terms of, if I say I'm going to only have me and a co-host talking about African things, how that might not be sustainable is even in longevity. If you discover my podcasts, let's say today we talk about Will Smith's slap, right? And it's hot today, like it's relevant. But like, you discover my podcast 1 year later and you come in and I'm talking about that, it's like, okay, I mean, I've been there. Like, I talked about this last year, right? The other thing was looking at sustainability from a production perspective. What's easier? Is it easier to have many hosts? What are the dynamics, the logistics around that? Can I do this every week for 1 year? That's like one of the things in our workshops that we run, that we ask, right? And then I realized, well, it makes sense to have a different African in every show because, one, it means I can bulk record. So it means for 3 months, I can be out recording stories, and then for 3 months I'm chilling, like I'm not recording the stories, right? And then I can plan going forward and see if something is happening right now that relates to this story. I can pull that story and say, okay, this one is running next week. And so it means that in a sustainable way, like we're not going to fall off in episode 10, right? The other thing to think about when it's sustainability is like, do you give a damn about this topic that you want to build an entire show around? Because you're going to be running it and hosting this thing for years, right? If you do this right. And so for me, I love small talk. I make friends everywhere I go. I always have a recorder in my handbag. I've recorded stories in cabs, in bathrooms. Like he started telling me a story and I'm like, it sounds really good. Do you mind if we record this? So I genuinely loved it. And then the last bit on sustainability is revenue, because let's not lie, you actually need money to run this machine. You need to pay producers, you need to have a marketing budget. There's a lot of costs. Wi-Fi, even if you're working from home, that rent you're paying is a cost that actually can be charged to the business, right? And so if you build content that doesn't have value pockets where an advertiser can attach themselves to, or there can be an on-ground activation around it, or that you use legacy media, like I said, as a distribution or revenue partner, then you are kind of shooting yourself short because you will run out of money by episode 10 to keep producing this thing. So I think before you start whatever the show is, you actually have to ask yourself, one, if you really are interested in it, and two, can you do this consistently weekly for 1 year? And if you can't, start investigating why, because then maybe the topic you have is not for the show. It's maybe an episode. It's not an entire show. Yeah.
Talking of podcasts, Calvin, I wanted to ask you about the Mics Are Open. I attended a workshop where Jimani was speaking, saying how much money you guys made, and it was ridiculous. What was it? And he said, the reason why I'm saying this is I want podcasters to know that it is possible to actually make money off this. So talking of sustainability, like, at what point did you guys start making all this money, and how did that happen?
You made the story so romantic. Unfortunately, it's not what it is, right? So we've been lucky enough and been very intentional. We've been very consistent. We've been very disciplined in terms of actually not running a podcast on vibes and inshallah, but actually running it as a company, planning, saying, okay, who are we going to continuously pitch in? Adele knows that. We'll sit and have lunch for 2 hours discussing these kind of things. So some of the things that we've done when we talk about money is we'll go to brands continually and say, okay, this is the idea that we have. We'd like to do this, and on and on and on. So it just becomes a thing where there's different people in the team who do different stuff. I go on sets. I don't ask about the cameras, the sound. Austin, who's actually here, manages that as a department. If we're looking at like decks and everything, Fabs, who's here, will do that. When it comes to accounting, Kevin will do that. G will be over there sticking this and that. He'll oversee a couple of things, right? When it comes to this whole other side of advertising and coming into the business and everything, having worked in advertising, I understand it. So I fall into all of that. When it comes to like things like content, Andy, Ashley, who Neville are always putting all of this kind of stuff. So everybody has a role. So once you've defined all of that, it becomes sustainable. But that said, we're always shipping into the WhatsApp group. We got to talk about this and this, like mental health awareness. We got to come up with something like that. Earlier in the year, we have a walk to talk to our community. It's World Happiness Day. What are we doing, with our community? All of these different kind of things. So it becomes very sustainable. And by sustainability, I think, just as Adele was saying, it's very easy to actually make it into a business that's constantly making money, because you're always coming up with so many different ideas and so many different clients. But to also note that I think the first check we ever made was episode 100. We are 474. That's in a span of 5 years. It's consistency. We've had seasons where for like 4 months, we don't have clients, but we're shooting. Because you see, when the clients come, they don't care about what is going on. Did you have money? You didn't have money and all of that. They want the numbers. right? They're always asking, so who's your target audience? What's your male-female split? Who are you talking to? In Mombasa, we want to do this and that and all of that. So it's very important, just like Adelle was saying, you got to make sure when you're making it sustainable, you also lower the cost of production of a podcast. So this whole story, not to name names, but I hear guys produce a podcast for 50K an episode. That is not sustainable. I can tell you that for sure. Because how are you going to go for 8 episodes? You've dropped 400K. And you probably don't even have the numbers to back a brand coming on to give you that. I get so many young guys who come and say, hey, I want to come in and record this podcast and what and what and what. I want to do all of this. I'm like, hold on. Just go Luthuli. Look for a Behringer mixer. You can start with one for like 14 Gs or something. Get a Behringer C1 microphone. Starter pack. You can probably spend maybe like 40 grand. Go on the internet, download Audacity. It's a free software. Start messing around with all of that. Like, I'll tell you guys something you guys don't know. Ikonini podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in Kenya, he actually shoots on his iPhone. So you get him, he's been able to minimize the cost of what he's doing, but now he's making money. Those are some of the hacks that you need to have for sustainability. I think one of the things that Adelle and I have really mentioned a lot over time is the global drop-off rate for podcasters is actually episode number 7. You guys don't get past that. Why? Because they go in with all of this, oh, this is going to be this, we're going to make so much money, this, that. You're thinking about so much that you don't need to think about. Just do the content, everything else will fall into place.
Can I just add on money? Because I think I said earlier, I like it. When you start your, whatever it is, if it's a podcast or like a YouTube show, whatever it is, I think it's important to also think about, and I met with one of our board members and he said, the business to business model, it's not reliable, right? Because it's dependent on, let's say, my Quencha is the person who I want to advertise, right? I am not in control over, in this office, who decides that this year, are we going to put money in creative fields? Or are we putting money where we get this water? Or are we putting all our money into packaging, whatever? I have no control over that. I can have the best podcast, the best data, all of that, and I will still not get their money because I'm just not part of their plan that year or for the next 3 years. So it means then the model you need to look at is business to consumer, your community, which then means you have to think about what can you start creating that your business, if it's a podcast, think of it as a business, can be making revenue by itself internally so that even if these guys don't come, you're still able to pay your overheads, right? Why I like new media is that you can dream. There's no barrier to what that thing is going to be. You can choose live events, and even with money from the brand that was, going to pay for it. But I was already pitching to a distributor, like I had the product. And like the videographer is dying of laughter because she's like, this chick is pitching air, this thing that doesn't exist. So pitching you will have to do. But if you can get to a point where internally, tenor your overheads, even if it's something that's bringing in 50K, it means rent is paid for, production is paid every month, then you'll be so good. Yeah.
Azziad, I also want to talk to you about sustainability. Which model has worked for you? It's actually very surprising, but also kind of a beautiful surprise what you said about, I still want that security that I have a day job in case I'm not having any brand that wants to work with me. But despite that, you have been quite successful working with various brands because of your following and especially TikTok and other platforms. I mean, how sustainable is that? Are people really making money on TikTok? From my experience, I find a lot of influencers, before TikTok became TikTok, a lot of people were making money from Twitter. And then now Twitter became this toxic place, at least in Kenya. And now a lot of people started making money on Instagram, and then TikTok now became king and queen. So I'm wondering, at this very point in time, are TikTokers making money? Do you know?
Oh, TikTokers are making a lot of money, but you have to make noise for the money. Like, it's unfortunate that we are not monetized how like the US are being monetized, like per views, you get this amount of money. And if you ask me, like Kenyans have got a lot of views on TikTok, but the only way that TikTokers are making money now is when you go live. There's this thing called gifts. That's why most of the time when you're live, or rather when you pass by TikTok, you'll find people saying, tap, 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 gift me, lion, something like that. So when your followers buy, they're called gifts. So you need a PayPal account and then you purchase the coins. So when they gift you this lions or roses or guns, whatever it is, then it gets to your account and turns into coins, and then you can withdraw that from PayPal. I know of somebody who made close to 5 million a night on TikTok, but you need to be controversial. I mean, yeah, which is just not for a lot of us. That is how people are making money on TikTok, apart from brands. And for social media, as a content creator on social media, the only way that you can be sustainable, or rather it can be sustainable, is one, build on your numbers, build on your audience, make sure it's legit, it's genuine. Do not rush to buy anything. Trust me, it's going to take forever to build that audience, but pole pole, let them come genuinely, because if it's a fake audience, then the clients will be able to know. Like, it's so visible. That's one. When you've built on your audience, it's easy to get brands. Once you get these brands, try and negotiate for longer contracts. For example, now, I do not take anything below 6 months. The longer, the better. So that when someone sees Azziad, oh, Garnier, oh, Maybelline, she's definitely doing that. She's definitely wearing that. So try and negotiate for long-term contracts. And also, as a content creator, again, like, do not just get your money and spend. Please invest. Go to treasury bills and bonds and whatever it is. Invest. That's what I can say. Yes, that's why I'm an entrepreneur. That's why I have bags. On a normal day, you'll find me on radio. I'm trying to do everything so that when the money streams in, because there are those days, let me tell you, where they say you're going to make 10 bob, and they say you're going to make 7 bob. That's the sad bit with social media. So just find the balance and just know how to make more money.
I think all of you and your platforms have very strong following. So if you could all educate us, like, how do you build the right audience and keep them with you?
I think when it comes to your audience, for me, I will not change who I am to please anyone on social media. So you see what you get. And I am not a dancer. I don't know why people keep thinking I'm a dancer. I dance for fun. You see how people work in banks and then at 5 p.m. they go and play golf. Now that's me. I love dancing. Aside from acting is my first love, and I love content creation, and then I enjoy dancing. So even when you go back to like my videos, my most viral videos are like lip syncing and acting and whatever it is. So anyone who's been following me for the longest time, or anyone who's part of my followers, is going to tell you that Azziad is versatile. Today you'll go there, you'll find her talking in a corporate event. Tomorrow you'll find her dancing in shorts. The next day you're going to find her doing skincare. So I'm able to do everything, and I guess that is why my audience sticks around and it keeps growing rapidly over the years, because when they come there, they're able to look at this person, they're like, you know what, this is a human being who's just being themselves, because that is what I preach. Just be yourself. You do not need to live a fake life. I don't need to show you guys I'm getting into a jet or I live in a Range Rover. Just be authentic. That's what I can say.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation. New media entrepreneurship in Kenya and across Africa is being reshaped by a new generation of pioneers. From podcasters, brand collaborators, event curators, and innovators, they're all redefining what the media space can look like, is looking like. Their success isn't just in numbers, but in the real communities that they have built. For emerging creatives, this moment holds limitless possibility. And as one of our panelists showed, turning content creation into a viable business starts with understanding the power of interconnectivity and viewing yourself and your platform well beyond social media. Viewing your platform on social media as a business, but not just as an account or as a page. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of VIP Access. Remember, Season 5 of VIP Access is powered by Industry Talk Series. This is where we break down the realities of the creative economy and spotlight the people moving it forward. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you follow, share, and stay tuned for the next episode as we continue unpacking the systems, stories, and strategies shaping our industry today. Remember, we are on social media. Just look up for Anyiko PR, Anyiko Owoko, or Anyiko TV. You can also just go to Gote Institute and check out what's happening there if you're creative and would like to get to know about what's happening in the creative scene. There's loads of events that are free of charge that you can come and interact with other people from the industry. Thank you so much for listening, and this is where we end the show this week. See you again next week right here on VIP Access with yet another conversation and dope episode based on the Industry Talk series. That's it from me. Ciao, ciao. VIP Access Season 5 is proudly supported by the Gote Institute, Nairobi.